Hi, Shepherd's Pie. Greetings from the Philippines. I'm back, and tonight I would like to make a cheeky little video about one of the biggest pitfalls of expat life, and that is the old toxic expat. And there are a fair few. Not all of us. Luckily, it's a small minority. But if you become an expat and you travel, particularly around Asia, or around anywhere really, which has a big cultural difference to your home country, you're going to come into contact with expats because we do, on the whole, tend to gravitate towards each other. I know some people are saying in the comments they don't do that and they don't need other expat friends and they'll avoid expats, like a mile, and they keep themselves to themselves, they have local friends. Well, power to you. If that's the way you live your life, then nothing wrong with that. I've lived that lifestyle before. When I was in Thailand, certain periods of time now, I just mixed with locals because there weren't expats where I lived. But on the whole, it's pretty difficult to do, especially when you first start off as an expat. Because it's a new culture. You can't get off the plane and off the boat in any Asian country I can think of and walk straight into a circle of local friends. Some people live in places like Thailand and the Philippines their whole lives and don't really develop a circle of local friends because it's not easy. It's not easy to break that barrier. I mean, I've done it. It is doable, but it takes time and effort. Um, and what is the problem with associating with expats? I mean, some people will say, and there's often done in the comments, that why travel the world to mix with people that you can mix with in your home country? Well, just because you're mixing with expats doesn't mean that you're, mixing with people you could meet in your home country. I mean, I was at a good friend of mine, Frankie. It was his leaving party on the weekend. Be sorry to see him go. Um, he's Norwegian, going back to Norway. You might have seen him in a previous video. On that party, what nationalities were there? We had a couple of Americans, we had a French guy, we had 3 Norwegians, we had a Swede, a Canadian, Dutch, um, lots of Filipinos. I mean, there was a big mix. I mean, there was no majority. Was I the only English expat there? Yeah, I was. The Danish expat. So all different, European and Western countries. So they're not the kind of people that you would be talking to in your home country necessarily. Anyway, and it's important. If you're social people, it is important to have, most people are social. Most people do like to have, circle of friends and interact, whether that's in a coffee shop, whether that's in a bar, whether that's in, a motorcycle group or there's lots of forums and things. Although I would warn against forums because you do tend to get some very, very cynical people on forums for some reason. A lot of people on forums um, seem to hate the places they are, which makes you wonder why they're in Thailand or why they're in the Philippines. You do get a lot of negative posters on forums, in my experience. I don't use them anymore, I haven't looked at them for years. Maybe the people are more positive now. But no, expats in general, I'm not saying there's a problem with expats at all. I mix with a lot of expats these days since I've moved to Bumageti. But you do get some toxic expats. And I think there's 2 kinds, really. The fantasists who are trying to escape problems in their home countries, and the con men. Now, if we talk about the con men first, in my limited experience, I think you tend to find them more around the sex tourist areas than you do necessarily in regular expat places like Dumaguete, for example. I haven't come across many, to my knowledge, yet. And that doesn't mean that you won't come across some. I mean, there's always a possibility you're going to get an expat scam, selling property or whatever, because that goes on a lot, like in Thailand. But my own theory, rightly or wrongly, if I'm wrong, tell me in the comments, is a lot of expats a lot of these scammer expats, they want to enjoy a lifestyle where they can live a certain type of life, but they can't actually afford to do it. They run out of money, but the life is so addictive to them, it's like crack. So they can't give up the lifestyle. So to maintain it, they start doing things that they probably wouldn't do before to try and maintain that lifestyle. And the problem because of that is, so let's say that's why I'm saying it tends to be the sex tourist kind of areas, like Pattaya and places like that, because that tends to be where people, I would imagine, fall in love with the lifestyle more. It's not a lifestyle they can replicate if they go back to their home countries. So they become more desperate to stay there and therefore are more willing to do desperate things, in other words, rip off expats to maintain that lifestyle. I saw a lot of rogues in my time in Thailand, and you were always hearing about expat scams because it's a dangerous mix. You've got expats who are willing to do anything to stay there, in terms of screwing people, but you've also got a pool of very naive expats who've come over determined to stay there, and like a fool with their money are just desperate to buy a business or property or land or make money to finance their stay there, and they often fall prey to these scam expats, shall we say. Now, I haven't seen or heard many of those in the Philippines. Doesn't mean they're not here. I mean, I don't watch many vlogs. Strange, before I started vlogging myself, I used to watch lots of vlogs. Now, for some reason, I've stopped. Probably I'm scared to see where I'm going wrong if I watch someone else's. But no, so I wouldn't necessarily know what's going on over here. And I tend not to read local online forums and things, but I have not heard of many scams where expats are scamming expats here in the Philippines. But my God, I don't know. But they are one of the dangers. So my advice would be on that line, don't get involved in business deals with other expats. To me, that's a total red flag. Someone comes up to you and they want money for an investment. Think very, 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 very hard before you do it. I wouldn't say no. I'm not going to say don't ever do it, because I'm sure there are some successful stories of expats who ended up going into business and made a lot of money. All I'll say is I would think very long and hard about doing it. It's not something you want to rush into. Certainly not a business you know nothing, anything about. And if you don't know anything about it, then don't do it. But if, for example, I don't know, you've been a chef in a successful, London restaurant, and you meet another chef over here who shares your passion and has worked in a restaurant, and you want to open a restaurant together, or they've been a restaurant manager with years of experience, and you can check their credentials and you know it to be true, then maybe there's a good time to do it. I mean, maybe that's, that. But think long and hard. If an offer's too good to be true, there's a reason why, because it's bullshit. So, yeah, rule of thumb, don't lend money to expats. Don't get involved in businesses with them. Because, I mean, when I say don't lend money, I'm not talking about, like 50 quid at the weekend if they're short or whatever, or, you're out one night. But I'm talking about larger sums of money. Obviously, if someone's asking to borrow small sums all the time, I tell them to ram it. But that's up to you. That's your life. But I certainly be very wary of going into business with an expat because, yeah, rarely ends well. Even if they're not out to con you. Even if they're not out to con you. It's very hard to make businesses work. Generally, you get a lot of successful ones, don't get me wrong, but you get far more failures. Pattaya is one example. I think something like 80%, 85% of all the bars there go bankrupt each year. Yeah, you'll get some people who are doing incredibly well with go-go bars and they're going for several million. pounds, and you'll get some bars that are successful, but the vast majority go under. And those that don't go under, most of them make a pittance. So yeah, that's not where I'm really going with this though. The ones I'm talking about now are the fantasists. And you will meet a lot of them based on my experience and conversations I have with other people. Because you get a mixed bag of expats when you travel. You get some tremendously successful ones. We've had fantastically successful business in our home country, but they've married a Filipino or a Thai and they come back there and got a huge house and, just really wealthy, doing well for themselves. You'll tend not to mix with them. I don't. They're not interested in me. I'm not highbrow enough. You might meet them occasionally. You'll hear of them. You get a lot who've done military careers and things, got their pensions, come over, living comfortably. You'll get some who are economic, migrants struggling to live in their own country, so they come over. Most of the expats you'll meet in the Philippines seem to have Filipino wives. Thailand, most of them seem to, they tend not to have Thai wives, some do, but they've gone over for the lifestyle. But the point I'm trying to say, I'm going around in circles here, is most of them are right. Most of them are genuine people. The vast majority of expats you'll meet will be, do we say, good folk. They might not necessarily be your cup of tea, but they're not out to harm you. I've been surprised how many of the expats in Dumaguete are really good, helpful souls, should we say. Nice people. Not all people I'd like to associate with a lot. I mean, not always got a lot in common with them, but I haven't met any a-holes, should we say. Not really. Not real ones. Which was not always the case in Thailand. I've met quite a few over there. But that's a different story. Now, the ones you've got to watch, in my experience, are the fantasists, the escapees, who have come to another country and basically reinvented themselves. Because it's an easy thing to do, it's an attractive thing to do to these people, it would seem to be. They come somewhere where no one can check on their stories, and they could just basically assume the life they always wanted to have, be what they always dreamt of being. And invariably, these are special forces. You'll meet the number of Navy SEALs and Special Air Service and, just any kind of special forces. I mean, you meet them all over the place. And to be honest with you, that doesn't really bother me. Doesn't bother me so much these days. In the early days, it used to. Now, I know it's stolen valour. I know as someone who was in the forces, it should probably upset me more than it does. But I just kind of when they tell me that, I kind of look and smile and think, yeah, of course you were, mate. I used to ask difficult questions a few years back, like, what regiment were you? Where did you, if it was British, where did you do your training and that? Because it's very easy to pick these people out. I mean, very easy. But I don't see the point anymore. Some people get upset about it. I don't. I was playing darts a few weeks ago and I was partnered with this guy who was telling me how he was, I won't say where, he was special forces in some country, in a European country, but I might meet the guy again, so I'm not going to call him a bullshitter, but it was bullshit. He says what he says. I listen with a wry smile. I giggle about it when I go home. That don't bother me. The point is to be wary, to understand that all that glitters isn't gold. What they're telling you isn't true a lot of the time. But the reason I'm making this video, the ones I found, based on my experience, because of my experience on City, or those who don't know, I'll put a link to it at a couple of videos I made about it at the end of this video. But I have come to the conclusion, having thought back about what happened there, and other expats I've met over the years who've had problems with these kind of expats, there seems to be a pattern with these people. They're not necessarily military fantasies, or they are a lot of the time, but they will tell you they have no connection with their families at home. They've had nothing to do with their kids for years. Their kids don't want anything to do with them. They don't talk to their brothers, their sisters, or their parents if they're still alive. They're finished with everyone. Um, and you start to think, why? And it's easy to feel sorry for these people. I mean, my friend over there, I had the incident with, he was telling everyone that he had nothing to do with his kids and they just ignored him for years. And I was feeling very sorry for him. But, nah, I understand entirely why now they had nothing to do with him. He's a bloody nutcase. But you don't think that at the time. And when I heard him telling that to the Filipinos, they're like, oh no, that's so bad. People should respect their father and this kind of. But obviously that's a warning sign there's something wrong. Not to mention the fact, if these people are fantasists, why don't they make up a fantasy about their families back home? Why are they lying about other stuff, but not making up a fantasy life back in their home country? Because, as I say, it's very usual for expats not to have great family lives back in their home country. Very often the case. Because at the end of the day, if you could, if you had a great family network in your home country, you're really close to your kids, really close to your brothers and sisters, your parents are still alive or whatever, and you're not struggling for money, then you're probably not going to want to be an expat. Your ties are going to be so strong at home, you're probably going to want to stay there. Not always. I mean, there'll be exceptions. Some people will have a real compulsion to travel. I mean, I've got a compulsion to travel. I have quite a close relationship with, my parents and things like that, but I don't have any kids. And that's one of the reasons I was able to become an expat. If I'd had kids in the country, then I probably wouldn't be able to live this life because I'd have responsibilities to them, but I don't. So I was free to travel. So not all expats, necessarily have bad relationships at home. It's just for whatever reason they're not married, they don't have the ties, so they can, family and that, and kids and things, they can travel. But when someone tells you that they've got no relationships with anyone in their home country, they've got no contacts, that tell you some tale how terribly they've been treated by their children. You've got to ask yourself why. Why has that happened? Are they trying to set you up for a con? Are they trying to make you feel sorry for them? Or is there something really wrong with them inside? Because if you're going to make up a life, say you were like in the SAS, why not make up a life that you've got two fantastic children, one of them's a doctor, one of them's a lawyer, I personally think it's because they're full of anger and bitterness because of the problems they've had in their home country. They come over to a new life to try and start it again, start this fantasy world. And when they can't achieve the lifestyle that they thought they could achieve, or they can't achieve it to the same level as other people, I think they watch, they get jealous, and they get twisted. And those people are what I would call toxic expats. And, you know how my toxic expat relationship ended. He tried to kill me. Well, I'm not saying for 1 second that's going to happen to you, but if it doesn't happen to you, well, it's invariably going to happen, and these people will start leaning on you. They will start relying on you, and they can drag you down. Their toxicity can rub off on you. You can feel responsible for them. That's what certainly happened to me and has happened to me in the past. Because if I get to know someone, I think they've got problems, I'll generally try and help them. Not always. I'm not the soft touch some people seem to think I am. But, I've got quite a friendly chap, I think, and I try and help. And hopefully you are. I mean, I'm not suggesting for 1 second, you put these barriers up and you don't interact with anyone. Just saying, as an expat, there are times when you can be lonely. And there are times when, let's face it, you're vulnerable. You're in a new town, you're in a new city. You don't learn, you don't know necessarily the culture or the lay of the land, and you may well get help by expats. Now, during that period, you might be vulnerable to scams and things, but if they don't scam you and they are genuine people and they help you, then you tend to be, in my experience, at the end of that, you're grateful for the help they gave you and you appreciate what they did for you. So it's only natural that you will extend the same helping hand, to another expat you see in a similar situation. But as I say, the trouble is, not all expats are good. Some of them are toxic. But I think I've made my point now. I don't want to go around in circles. All I will say, like I say in all my videos, take it with a pinch of salt. I'm no expert. I just like talking to the camera, hearing the sound in my own voice, and expressing my opinions. And I do like hearing, opinions back in the comments. Sometimes I get it right. Maybe sometimes I get it wrong. But I'll just say to you, if you're an expat and you're starting off an expat life, just be wary because a percentage of expats you cannot trust. Now, you cannot trust a percentage of people in your home country, any home country. The difference is in your home country, you tend not to be as vulnerable, because you know your home country, you know the culture, you've grown up in that society, you know the warning signs. Not quite so easy when you're in somewhere new. Not quite so easy when you're intoxicated by the fantasy life you've just embraced. You're like, oh my God, this place is amazing. I want to stay here. How do I do it? Oh, I need to get a business. Oh, I'm going to buy this apartment. I'm going to rent it out. I'm going to live off the income from that. And this guy's going to give me a great deal. Oh, this guy's ex-special forces. He's a fantastic bloke. He's really amazing and interesting. He's going to help me with this and that, Just be careful. Because even if you don't realise it, you are vulnerable as an expat. At times you might not realise it. There are times when you might get down. There are times when you are lonely. Certainly, if you've only been in the country a few months, someone's been there several years, and they are of the toxic mentality or the con man mentality, and they've been doing that for a long time. They can be quite sophisticated in the scams they pull. You will hear of people losing like hundreds of thousands of pounds in scams in Thailand quite regularly. And you think, what an idiot. And you think, well, if they're that stupid, how did they accumulate the hundreds of thousands of pounds in the first place? Because the reality is, you just don't know when you're going to be scammed. Like this place I'm living in now. I won't tell you the ins and outs and the contract and all the rest of it because it's not the point of the video. But the guy who was the landlord was so convincing, I ended up paying a deposit and a month in advance before signing any paperwork with any dates and that on it because the contract was wrong. I wanted to hold the place. I broke all the rules. I didn't get a photocopy of anyone's ID or anything like that because I was stupid. And the guy was like, well, it's little money, don't worry about it. Money means nothing to me. I've got lots of property, Doubt it means anything to you. Let's just do it. We'll shake hands. My word's my bond. Forget the paperwork. We can sort it out another time. Just give us a deposit. Anyway, as soon as the deal was done, I got back and I thought, oh, Christ, what have I done here? What have I done here? Because the deal was that the internet wouldn't get switched on. We weren't moving until the internet was switched on. And that would be several. Anyway, doesn't matter. The point is, all turned out fantastic. The guy was straight as a die. We moved in. There's been no problems at all, But the point is, if he had been a con man, he'd got me then. And I thought about that long and hard. I'm thinking, I think I'm this great, well, not great, but I like to think I'm streetwise and know what I'm doing. But I've been taken for a mug by in Sigil. I was almost taken for a mug here. So I think I've got to wise up. Anyway, I'm going around in circles now. I hope you found this advice useful. As I say to you, nothing wrong with mixing expats. You meet some fantastic people. You meet some interesting people. But be wary. There are some sharks out there. And some of them are very sophisticated sharks with great scams. And there are a hell of a lot of fantasists out there. And those fantasists can become quite vindictive. They can become a burden. And on occasion, they can be dangerous. So anyway, I don't know. I kind of rambled a bit in this, wouldn't I? I'll endeavour to do better in the next video. Anyway, hope you enjoyed it. If you did, smash the like button. Be great if you subscribe to the channel. But as I often say, whether you do, whether you don't, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, stay safe, be lucky.